The morning sun was dim behind the clouds as Daniel gripped the worn handle of his shovel. He had taken the job with a heavy heart, expecting nothing more than backbreaking work in the alien fields. The village elders had warned him that humans were rarely chosen for such contracts, but the pay was good and his family on Earth needed the credits. With steady breath, he prepared himself for days of sweat and silence, turning soil on a planet far from home. Yet the moment he set foot on the alien farmland, he realized this was no ordinary field. The soil shimmered faintly, glowing in colors that shifted under his gaze. Strange towers pulsed in the distance, their surfaces alive with alien symbols. The air was heavy with energy, carrying whispers that weren't carried by sound, but pressed against his mind. Daniel tightened his grip on the shovel and muttered to himself that work was work. But the presence watching him was impossible to ignore. Out of the mist, figures began to emerge. They were tall, elegant, and otherworldly. Their skin carried a faint luminous glow, and their long hair moved as if touched by an unseen breeze. They walked with a grace that no human could match, armored in sleek bodysuits that blended orange and silver, alive with glowing lines of energy. Daniel froze where he stood. These were not fellow workers. These were the alien women who ruled the land. One of them stepped closer. Her eyes shone like twin stars, piercing his every thought. She carried herself with quiet power, her presence both beautiful and terrifying. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, in a voice that seemed to echo both in the air and in his chest, she spoke. "You came to plow the fields," she said, her words smooth but carrying a strange weight. "Do you know what that means here, human?" Daniel frowned, confused by the question. "Work, soil, crops, food," he answered simply. She tilted her head, and a faint smile curved her lips. "Not here," she said. Behind her, more alien women approached, each of them carrying the same glow of authority and strangeness. Their eyes all fixed on Daniel, studying him with the intensity of scientists observing a rare discovery. He shifted uncomfortably, gripping the shovel as if it could protect him, but no hostility came from them. Instead, there was something else: curiosity, expectation, almost hunger. The leader spoke again, her voice calm yet impossible to ignore. "Here, to plow the fields is to awaken what we cannot awaken alone. You were not chosen by mistake, human. Your task is not just labor, it is legacy." Her hand lifted slightly, pointing to the distant towers where a strange light pulsed in rhythm with Daniel's heartbeat. "You will learn," she said. "And when you do, you will understand why no one who accepts this role remains unchanged." Daniel's breath caught. His instincts screamed to run, but something deep within told him that running was useless. He was already bound to their world, tied by forces older than his understanding. He looked from one glowing face to another, realizing they weren't just farmers or landowners. They were guardians of a secret, and he had just stepped into the center of it. The shovel in his hand suddenly felt like more than a tool. It felt like a key. Daniel woke to the sound of whispers. The walls of the crystal chamber pulsed with faint light, breathing like a living thing. He sat up slowly, his body aching as if he had fought a real battle in his sleep. The memories of the day before rushed back, the alien women, the glowing soil, the test of strength in the circle. He rubbed his face with trembling hands, trying to convince himself it had only been a dream. But the strange taste of the air, the constant hum of energy, and the heavy silence told him this was no dream. The door slid open without sound. Serenia, the alien leader, stepped inside. Her silver hair shimmered in the faint light, her glowing eyes sharp but calm. She studied him in silence for a long moment, and Daniel felt like a child caught in something bigger than himself. Finally she spoke. "Come, it is time." He followed her outside, his boots crunching against the glowing soil. A group of alien women waited, their armored suits glowing faintly orange and silver under the pale sun. Their eyes were fixed on him, unreadable. The mist lifted slightly, showing the endless fields and the distant towers, their lights pulsing in rhythm with something deep in his chest. Serenia pointed ahead. Today you face the test. Not to fight, not to flee, to endure. Daniel frowned. I thought yesterday was the test. She shook her head slowly. That was only the soil seeing if you could stand. This will show if you can hold the burden. The women moved aside, revealing a path that led toward a pit surrounded by tall stone pillars. Strange carvings glowed on their surfaces, and a low hum rolled out like a heartbeat. Daniel swallowed hard but forced his legs to move. He stepped inside the circle, his chest already tightening as the air grew thick. The weight pressed down on him, heavier with every breath. His knees threatened to buckle, but he grit his teeth and stood tall. The pillars flared with light. Images swirled in the air, shadows of beasts with glowing eyes, storms of fire and smoke, walls of water crashing down. Daniel staggered as visions filled his head. He saw himself breaking, running, falling. He heard voices whispering, urging him to give up. His shovel shook in his hands. Serenia's voice carried through the weight. The soil remembers weakness. It feeds on fear. Show it, you will not bow. A beast of light rose before him, tall and snarling, claws like fire. Daniel's instinct screamed to run, but there was nowhere to go. He swung the shovel with all his strength, striking the glowing form. The impact sent a shock through his arms, but the beast burst apart into sparks. The weight lifted slightly, and Daniel gasped for air. But then another rose, bigger and heavier. Its fists pounded the ground, shaking the circle. Daniel stumbled, nearly falling. His muscles screamed in pain, but he forced himself to stand. The beast charged, and he rolled aside, striking again. Pain tore through his shoulder, but he didn't stop. Blow after blow, he fought until the figure dissolved into light. The air pressed down harder, nearly crushing him. His knees hit the ground, sweat pouring from his face. The whispers grew louder, filling his head with doubt. He wanted to close his eyes, to let it end. But he thought of Earth, of his family waiting for credits. He remembered nights without food, mornings of endless struggle, the taste of survival carved into his bones. He had endured before. He would endure again. One last figure rose from the soil, taller than the rest, its eyes burning like suns. It carried no weapon. Its presence alone crushed him. His chest burned, his vision blurred. His arms trembled so badly he almost dropped the shovel. For a moment he thought he would break. Then something inside him roared louder than the whispers. Daniel forced his legs to move. He lifted the shovel high, his whole body screaming in protest, and charged. The clash shook the ground, light bursting around him. Pain ripped through him, but he didn't stop. He swung again and again until the figure shattered into sparks. The pillars dimmed, and silence fell. Daniel collapsed to his knees, gasping, the shovel buried in the soil. The circle had gone dark. Around him, the alien women stared in silence, their glowing eyes wide with something like awe. Serenia stepped forward slowly, her face unreadable. She looked down at him for a long moment before speaking. "You stood," she said. Her voice was steady, almost solemn. "You did not run. You did not break. You endured." Daniel lifted his head weakly, his chest still heaving. "What was that?" he rasped. "What did I just fight?" Serenia's gaze softened slightly. "Your own weakness, your own fear. The soil remembers it all. Many who came before you failed this test. They broke, they fled. Some never rose again, but you are still standing." Her words cut deep. Daniel wanted to argue, to tell her he was no hero, no chosen one. He was just a man desperate for work. But deep inside, something shifted. He had not failed. He had endured the other. Women bowed their heads slightly, their eyes no longer cold, but touched with respect. Serenia placed her hand over her chest, a gesture of honor. You are not here by mistake, Daniel. You are the one we have been waiting for. Daniel closed his eyes, the weight of her words pressing harder than the visions had. He came here for a job. Now he carried a burden that could not be dropped. Daniel could still feel the echo of the trial days later. The weight, the visions, the crushing fear, it clung to him like a shadow. No matter how much water he drank, or how much rest he took, his body ached. His mind, though, was sharper than ever. He knew now the truth. This was no job. This was a burden. One that had broken men before him. But somehow he was still standing. The alien settlement lived in silence around him. The women moved like ghosts through the glowing halls, their luminous eyes always watching. He had learned their leader's name, Serenia. She carried herself like a queen, though no crown touched her head. Wherever she walked, the others bowed their heads. She was the one who tested him. She was the one who now guided him. One night, Serenia led him into a cavern carved deep beneath the soil. The walls shimmered with ancient carvings, glowing softly, with light that pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. Daniel stopped, his breath catching. The carvings showed humans. Men like him, holding strange tools, standing in the fields with alien women at their sides. He raised his hand and traced the image. This is us, he whispered. Serenia nodded, her voice low. Your kind has stood here before. Long before your earth forgot. The soil remembers humans just as it remembers us. Daniel's throat tightened. So I'm not the first. Her gaze was steady, unblinking. No, you are not. But you are the first to survive the test in many lifetimes. The others broke. They fled. Some fell into the soil and were swallowed by it. You are different. The words cut deep. He wanted to deny it. He wanted to say he was just Daniel, just a man with debts and calloused hands, not a savior, not a legend. But the carvings on the walls spoke louder than his doubts. He was tied to something older than he understood. The next morning, training began. Serenia and two others, tall, fierce women named Lysera and Nira, taught him how to listen to the land. They made him kneel in the glowing soil, press his palms flat, and breathe until he felt the rhythm beneath. At first he felt nothing but heat and weight. But as days passed, a strange pulse stirred under his skin. It was like a second heartbeat, older, slower, but powerful. Do not fight it, Serenia said, her voice calm but commanding. Let it move through you. Daniel gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face. The energy in the soil burned against his hands, crawling up his arms like fire. His muscles shook, his chest tightened, but he refused to let go. He endured. When he finally opened his eyes, the soil beneath him glowed brighter, alive with his touch. The women exchanged glances. Some were impressed, others were wary. Daniel caught their whispers in their alien tongue, their sharp tones betraying doubt. Not all of them wanted him here. Not all of them trusted him. One evening, after hours of grueling practice, Serenia sat beside him on the edge of the fields. The towers glowed in the distance, their lights flickering like ancient stars. She looked at him, her face unreadable. You carry more than you know, she said softly. Daniel's voice was hoarse with exhaustion. I never asked for this. I came here to work, to send money home, that's all. Her glowing eyes held his. No one asks for destiny. It comes whether you are ready or not. Silence stretched between them. Daniel looked at her and saw the weight in her shoulders, the burden she carried for her people. In that moment, he understood her better. She was not just a leader giving orders. She was tied to the land, just as trapped by it as he was. That night, lying awake in his chamber, Daniel thought of his family. He had promised them money, safety, a chance to live better. Instead, he had become part of something vast and terrifying. But deep down, he knew this was no accident. If humans had been here before, if the soil remembered them, then maybe he was meant to be here now. The next morning, Sirenia gave him a choice. She stood before him, her armor glowing faintly in the dawn light. "You can turn away," she said. "We will not stop you. But if you walk into the fields again, you accept the burden. And once you accept, you cannot leave." Daniel's stomach twisted. The weight of her words pressed harder than the soil ever had. To walk away meant leaving them to die, abandoning a people who had placed their hope in him. To stay meant binding himself to their world forever. He closed his eyes, breathing deeply. His hands tightened around the shovel he still carried. When he opened them again, he met Sirenia's gaze. "I'll stay," he said. "I'll do it." For the first time, she smiled, not cold, not mocking, but real. "Then you are ours, Daniel. And we are yours." The soil pulsed beneath his feet, as if it had heard his choice. The burden of legacy had passed to him, and there was no turning back. Daniel stood at the edge of the sacred fields as the dawn broke, his breath caught in his chest. The land stretched wide before him, glowing faintly in shifting colors, alive, with a hum that pressed against his bones. Behind him stood Sirenia and the alien women, silent and watchful. Their glowing eyes followed his every move. The air was heavy, filled with tension, as if the soil itself was waiting. Sirenia stepped closer, her voice calm but sharp. "The time has come. You will awaken the fields." Daniel's stomach twisted. For days he had trained, pressing his hands into the soil, learning to feel its slow heartbeat, its deep slumber. But now, with the full weight of their stares, he felt the crushing truth. If he failed, this world might fall with him. He gripped the shovel tightly, its metal cool against his palm, and forced his legs to move. The soil beneath his boots shifted as he stepped forward. The glow brightened, pulsing like a giant heart. He knelt, pressing his palms flat into the ground, just as Sirenia had taught him. At first there was only warmth, faint and steady. But as he pushed harder, focusing, the warmth became heat, the heat became fire, crawling up his arms. His teeth clenched as the power burned inside him, threatening to tear him apart. The ground shuddered. Sparks of light danced across the soil, spreading outward in circles. The alien women gasped softly, their eyes widening. Sirenia's voice rang out over the rising hum. "Do not fight it. Let it move through you. Guide it." Daniel groaned, his muscles screaming. His chest felt like it would burst. Images flashed through his mind, dark skies, endless storms, fields covered in ash. He saw alien women kneeling in despair, their towers broken, their voices silent. The soil was showing him its memory of collapse. His arms trembled, sweat pouring down his face. He wanted to rip his hands away, but something deep inside told him not to. He forced himself to push deeper, focusing on the rhythm of his heart. Slowly, the vision shifted. From ash came green. From storms came light. From silence came voices rising. The soil answered him, glowing brighter, burning hotter. The energy surged through him like a river, filling every part of his body until he thought he would explode. Then, with a roar torn from his throat, he drove the shovel deep into the ground. The fields erupted. Light burst outward, blinding and fierce. The towers in the distance flared, their symbols blazing. The ground shook violently, throwing dust into the air. The alien women staggered, shielding their eyes. Daniel clung to the shovel, his body shaking with pain, but he refused to let go. The soil pulsed under his hands, alive, awake, answering his call. For a moment, there was chaos. Winds tore across the fields, carrying sparks of fire and streams of glowing dust. The hum grew into a roar, filling the air until it was impossible to hear. The ground split in places, cracks spilling light like rivers of flame. Daniel's vision blurred, but he held on, forcing the energy to flow, forcing it to balance. Finally, the roar softened, the light dimmed to a steady glow. The cracks closed, leaving the soil pulsing gently under his palms. The towers shone bright and steady, their humming now calm, alive with power instead of despair. Daniel collapsed forward. Gasping, his chest burning, his arms numb, silence fell. The alien women stared in awe. None spoke for a long time. Finally, Serenia stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Daniel. She knelt beside him, placing her hand lightly on his shoulder. "You have done what none before you could. The fields are awake." Daniel coughed, lifting his head weakly. That was just soil," he muttered, his voice hoarse. Serenia shook her head. "No, that was life itself. You did not just plow the fields, Daniel. You called them back from death." The women bowed their heads in silence, a gesture of respect. He did not understand but felt deeply. For the first time since arriving, he was no longer just an outsider. He was something else, something the soil itself had claimed. But not all eyes were kind. Among the women, some looked at him with doubt, others with hidden anger. Daniel caught their glares, sharp as blades. He understood the truth. Not all of them would accept him. Not all of them wanted a human bound to their sacred land as he struggled to stand. Serenia steadied him. Her voice was low, meant only for him. "You have awakened the fields, but the awakening has drawn more than life. Others will come. Some will not be pleased." Daniel's chest tightened. He had thought the burden was only about labor, about keeping the soil alive. But now he realized it was more. His act had lit a signal across the land, a call that would not go unanswered. The soil pulsed beneath his feet again, steady and alive. Daniel swallowed hard, gripping the shovel. He had awoken the fields, but what else had he awakened? The fields glowed for days after Daniel's awakening. The soil pulsed like a living heart, sending waves of light across the land. The towers hummed steadily, their carved symbols burning brighter than ever. Life was returning. Strange flowers sprouted overnight, their petals glowing softly in the mist. Streams of water that had been dry for years now shimmered with color. To the alien women, it was a miracle. To Daniel, it was proof he had stirred something he could never fully control. At first, there was celebration. Serenia led her people into the fields, kneeling with hands pressed into the soil, whispering words of thanks. Daniel stood apart, watching as they sang in voices that echoed like wind through stone. For the first time since arriving, he felt a quiet pride. He had done this. He had given them hope. But hope did not last long. The whispers began. Not from the soil this time, but from the women themselves. Daniel caught their sharp glances, the way some pulled away when he passed. At night he overheard arguments carried on in their alien tongue. Not all of them trusted him. Not all of them wanted a human carrying their fate. It came to a head during the gathering at the stone circle. The entire tribe stood around the glowing pit, their armor shimmering in the firelight. Serenia stood at Daniel's side, her voice strong. "He has awakened the fields. He has given us life again. By the soil's memory, he is chosen." But another woman stepped forward. She was tall and fierce, her armor darker than the others, her eyes sharp as blades. Daniel had seen her watching him with suspicion for days. Now she raised her voice. "Or he is a danger. The soil may answer him, but he is not of us. We trust him, and one day he may destroy us," the crowd murmured. Some nodded, others looked uneasy. Serenia's jaw tightened, but she did not back down. "Without him, we would already be ash." The rival's voice cut through the air. "And with him, we may still be ash. He is not one of us, Serenia. He is an outsider, a human." Daniel's fists clenched. He wanted to shout that he had risked everything, that he had nearly died to awaken their land. But Serenia placed a hand lightly on his arm, stopping him. Her eyes told him to wait. The rival raised her arm, pointing directly at him. If he is truly chosen, let him prove it before all of us. Let him show not just strength, but heart. If he fails, he leaves and the soil can take him back. A roar of voices rose, some in agreement, some in protest. Daniel's chest tightened. Another test. Another burden. He felt the weight of their stares pressing down like the soil itself. Serenia. Step forward, her voice steady but fierce. So be it. But understand this, if he proves himself again, then no voice will rise against him. Not yours, not any. The rival nodded coldly. Agreed. That night, Daniel sat in silence on the edge of the glowing fields. His hands trembled as he stared at the soil, alive with faint light. He thought of Earth, of his family, of the promise he made to send them money. He thought of the carvings in the cavern, of humans long before him carrying the same burden. He was not sure if he could endure another trial. But then he remembered the look in Serenia's eyes, the trust she had shown when no one else did. For her, for them, he could not back down. The next morning, the tribe gathered again. Daniel stood in the circle, shovel in hand. The rival woman faced him, her expression hard. Serenia's voice rang out. The soil has been awakened, but now it must be guided. Daniel will step into the fields again. If the soil accepts him a second time, he is ours forever. If it rejects him, he is cast out. Daniel swallowed hard, stepping forward. The soil glowed beneath his boots, alive and waiting. He pressed his palms to the ground. At once, the hum rose, stronger than before. Heat crawled up his arms, fire filled his chest. His vision blurred with light. Images flashed again, this time not of collapse but of choice. He saw paths splitting before him. In one, he turned away, and the soil withered. The towers darkened, Serenia's people fading into dust. In the other, he pressed forward, and the land bloomed, alive with light, but his own body cracked with the weight of it. The soil demanded a decision. Pain tore through him, but he forced himself to breathe, to focus. He remembered Serenia's words, do not fight it, guide it. He thought of his family, of the starving nights back on Earth, of promises made. He thought of Serenia, her people, their desperate hope. With a roar, he drove the shovel deep into the soil once more. Light exploded outward, brighter than before, but this time Daniel held steady. The soil answered him, not with chaos, but with calm. Flowers burst across the fields, glowing blue and gold. The towers blazed like suns. The women gasped, some falling to their knees. When the light dimmed, Daniel stood tall, chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. Serenia stepped forward, pride shining in her eyes. The rival woman lowered her head, defeated. Serenia's voice was clear, carrying over the silence. The soil has chosen. He is no longer outsider. He is one of us. The crowd bowed their heads, some with joy, others with reluctance. But none dared speak against it. Daniel gripped his shovel, heart pounding. He had passed again. But deep inside, he knew this was not the end. The choice he had made bound him forever, not only to the fields, but to a people who now looked at him as both savior and threat. The world was no longer silent. The fields Daniel had awakened stretched wide with light and life. Streams flowed. Where there had been dust, flowers glowed in colors his eyes had no name for, and the towers sang with deep, steady hums. Everywhere he looked, Serenia's people thrived again. They touched the soil with reverence, their voices lifted in songs that carried across the valley. They looked at him differently, now no longer a worker, no longer an outsider, but the man who had brought their world back from the edge. Yet Daniel felt the weight of it more than ever. Each time he pressed his hands into the glowing soil, he could feel its hunger, its endless demand for strength. It was alive now, but it was tied to him, bound by the choice he had made. He knew this bond would never leave him. Serenia stood beside him at the edge of the fields, her eyes glowing faintly in the dusk. "You carry the soil within you now," she said softly. "Its rhythm is your rhythm. Wherever you go, you will feel it." Daniel looked out at the land, watching the towers blaze like stars. "And if I leave?" he asked. Her voice grew quiet. "Then it weakens. Then it may fall asleep again. We would fall with it." The truth hit him like stone. His choice had been final. His life was no longer only his own. He had bound himself to their survival. That night, a great gathering filled the settlement. Fires burned high, and the alien women stood in a wide circle around him. Serenia stepped forward, her voice carrying over the hum of the towers. "The soil has spoken. The towers have answered. Daniel of Earth is no longer a stranger. He is the guardian of the fields." The crowd bowed low, their glowing eyes fixed on him. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, gripping the shovel that had never left his side. He had never wanted titles, never wanted reverence. But as he looked at their faces, he saw hope. Real hope, carved into their every expression. After the gathering, Serenia found him sitting alone near the edge of the glowing streams. The night sky shimmered with strange stars, reflected in the water. She lowered herself beside him, silent. For a moment before speaking, "Do you regret it?" Daniel shook his head slowly. "I regret nothing, but I wonder if this is really who I was meant to be." Her eyes softened, her voice almost a whisper. "Destiny is not chosen, Daniel. It is carried, and you carry it well." They sat in silence, the night alive with the hum of towers and the soft glow of flowers. For the first time since leaving Earth, Daniel felt not like a stranger, but like he belonged to something greater. But not all hearts were at peace. In the days that followed, Daniel noticed whispers still stirring. Some alien women bowed to him with reverence, but others avoided his gaze. To them, he was a savior, but also a threat. He had changed their world, yes, but what else could he change? He knew distrust did not vanish so easily. Serenia saw it too. One evening, she led him to the highest of the towers. Together, they climbed until the whole valley stretched beneath them. The soil pulsed with life, the streams glimmered, the alien women moved below like silver shadows. Serenia placed her hand on the glowing stone of the tower and spoke. "This world no longer breathes without you. But your place among us will not be built on fear. It will be built on choice." Daniel frowned. "Choice?" She turned to him, her glowing eyes steady. "You must choose if you will remain only the guardian of the fields or something more. Our people need more than survival. They need a future, and that future may rest in your hands." The weight of her words sank deep. He had come here as a man desperate for work, nothing more. But now he stood at the center of a people's survival, their hope, their future. Slowly, he raised his hand and pressed it against the glowing tower beside hers. The hum surged, stronger than ever, resonating through his chest. "I choose," he said firmly. "Not just to keep the soil alive, but to stand with you. To be part of this world." Serenia's lips curved in a rare, true smile. "That our legacy is bound together." The tower blazed, its light shooting into the night sky like a beacon. Across the valley, the fields glowed brighter, alive with renewed strength. The alien women lifted their voices in song, their words carrying through the air like thunder and wind. Daniel stood at the heart of it, his shovel still in hand, but no longer just a tool. It was a symbol now, a key that had unlocked more than fields. It had unlocked a future. And as the stars burned above and the soil pulsed below, he finally understood. He had not come here for money. He had not come here for survival. He had come here to awaken not just a world, but himself. The burden was his, the legacy was his, and he would carry it forever.